Why did his silence feel heavier than the storm outside? She sat in the dim briefing room, boots anchored to the concrete floor, watching the man across from her. He didn't blink, didn't shift, just sat frozen in place, arms folded as though the world had stopped moving around him. Others spoke, papers shuffled, the projector hummed, but his stillness, it burned. And she hated that it unnerved her. Captain Elena Vargas wasn't new to silence. She had trained in it, hunted inside it, lived long stretches of her life wrapped in it like a second skin. A sniper's patience had been her weapon, her curse. She could wait in the dust for 48 hours, not moving, barely breathing. She thought she had mastered silence. But his was different. Maybe because of the way his eyes didn't break from her. Maybe because she knew that once he moved, once he acted, something irreversible would happen. She just didn't know what. Focus. The colonel's voice cut the tension like a blade. Elena blinked and looked at the glowing map. A valley, narrow and jagged, lit under the projector's beam. Lines stretched outward, roads, supply routes, veins leading to a single point. A compound, marked in red. Her mission. At least, that's what they were calling it. But there was something she hadn't told them, not yet. Her fingers tightened around the edge of the table. She kept her face blank, neutral, like a mask she had worn for years. She couldn't afford for anyone to see the flicker in her chest. Not the colonel, not Martinez, not Harlow, and especially not him, the silent one across the table. Dawson. The colonel's voice droned on, outlining entry points, fallback positions, probabilities, percentages. To Elena, it all blurred. She was listening, but not with her ears. Her heart listened for something else, an echo from the past that wouldn't leave her. Every mission had its map, but not every map carried ghosts. The projector clicked, lights came on. The colonel dismissed them with a sharp nod. Chairs scraped, boots shuffled, the team rose. Elena stood slower than the rest, her breath catching against her ribs. She had to move now, hide the hesitation before anyone caught it. She slung her pack over her shoulder, the weight biting into her bones. Just as she turned toward the door, she felt it again, his eyes. Dawson. Still watching her, still motionless. Frozen, as if he saw something she thought she'd buried. And for the first time in years, Elena felt something close to fear. The rotor wash whipped her hair against her helmet, slapping strands across her face. The transport lifted off, steel bird roaring against the night sky. Elena strapped in, the vibration of the chopper rattling through her chest like an angry heartbeat. She closed her eyes, just for a second. And the memories came. She was 15 again, pressed against her bedroom door. The rattle of gunfire outside. The screams of neighbors echoing through the night. Her mother whispering prayers through clenched teeth. Her little brother clinging to her arm, shaking so hard she thought his bones might snap. Then silence. A silence heavier than the gunfire. The kind that meant bodies on the ground. Elena had learned then that silence wasn't peace. It was aftermath. And aftermath had carved her into who she was. She opened her eyes. Across the cabin, Martinez tapped his boot against the steel floor, restless energy vibrating out of him. He couldn't sit still. 19 years old, fresh out of training, eyes too bright, too eager. He chewed gum like it could anchor him. He glanced at her, gave a half grin, then looked away fast. Harlow sat beside him, older, heavier in the shoulders. His beard had streaks of silver. He carried himself like a man who had buried promises he couldn't keep. He checked his rifle again, though he'd already checked it 3 times since liftoff. His hands shook just slightly when he thought no one was looking. Then there was Dawson. Unmoving, silent. His helmet shadowed half his face. His eyes were fixed on nothing, or maybe on everything. Elena looked away first. They weren't just soldiers. They were fragments of broken lives stitched together by orders. And she, like it or not, was responsible for pulling them through the fire. Her jaw tightened. She wondered if they could sense it. the truth buried under her armor, the one thing that tied her to this mission more than maps or strategy. Because for Elena, this valley wasn't just coordinates on a screen. It was the place her brother's voice had last been heard. The valley rose before them, jagged and unforgiving. Dust storms curled across the rocks, spiraling into the air like restless spirits. They disembarked low, boots crunching into gravel. The helicopter lifted off, sound fading until all that remained was wind and heartbeat. The silence pressed in. Every soldier knew that kind of quiet, too quiet, wrong quiet, the kind of silence that didn't soothe but stalked. They moved in staggered formation, rifles sweeping the ridges, eyes darting to shadows. Elena felt the sweat slide down her spine, her breath slow and controlled. The valley swallowed sound, every footstep louder than it should have been. A crow cawed in the distance. The sound cut through the silence like a scream. Her instincts tensed. Something shifted in the air, dust, metal, tension she could taste. "Eyes up," Dawson murmured. It was the first time he'd spoken since briefing. His voice was low, steady, gravel against steel. Elena froze at the sound. The man who hadn't moved, hadn't spoken, now breaking his silence. And in that instant she realized why his stillness had unsettled her. It wasn't emptiness. It was control. And now, as his hand lifted, pointing toward the ridge, she felt the shiver crawl up her spine. They weren't alone. "Contact ridge 3 o'clock, Harlow whispered, dropping to a knee. Elena's rifle was already up, scope scanning the rocks. Shadows shifted. Sunlight glared against steel. Then movement. Not one, several. Figures emerging from the ridge like ghosts from the stone. Her finger tightened against the trigger. But something in her chest held her back. Because in that split second, as the enemy crested the ridge, Elena saw something impossible. A face. Not familiar by chance. Not an enemy she had studied in intel files. A face she had known. Her brother. No, impossible. He was gone. She had buried that truth years ago. She had to. And yet, for a heartbeat in the heat shimmer of the ridge, in the distortion of dust and distance, she swore she saw him. Her throat locked, her hands shook. "Elena." It was Dawson's voice, calm, cutting through the storm in her chest. "Focus." She blinked, the mirage broke. The ridge was only hostiles now, rifles, eyes, movement. But the ghost of her brother lingered. And Elena knew then, this mission wasn't going to let her walk away untouched. Why did her hands shake when they never used to? Elena steadied the rifle against her shoulder, her finger grazing the trigger. Dust whipped across the ridge, shadows darting in and out of her scope. The enemy moved with intent, coordinated, fast, like they had been waiting for this moment all along. But her heart wasn't in the rifle. Her heart was in her throat, stuck on the image she had just seen, her brother's face, carved in the haze of the ridge. She wanted to believe it was only a trick, a shimmer of heat, a phantom conjured by memory and dust. But her gut didn't let go so easily. Her gut whispered something darker, something she couldn't admit to the men at her side. "Elena." Dawson's voice again, low, certain, a command disguised as a reminder. She blinked, steadied, pressed the scope harder into her brow. The world snapped back into clarity, rocks, rifles, men moving along the ridge. No ghosts, no family. She drew in a slow breath. Exhale. Squeeze. The first shot cracked. The enemy scattered, dropping low, firing back with wild arcs that chewed into stone. Gravel spat across her cheek, sharp as glass. She rolled sideways, finding new cover, firing again. Martinez's voice cut through the storm. Left flank 2 moving down. The kid's voice shook, but he fired true. His shots echoed across the valley, dropping one figure, forcing another to dive behind boulders. Harlow cursed under his breath. Ambush, they knew we'd be here. Elena's stomach tightened. He was right. The The timing, the position, it was too precise. Someone had fed them their route. But who? And why? She pressed the thought down. She couldn't afford it now, not with rounds snapping past her head. "On me," she shouted, voice carrying over the gunfire. They shifted, leapfrogging cover to cover, discipline holding against chaos. Dawson moved with eerie precision, his silence more commanding than any order. Every shot he fired was controlled, deliberate, as though the firefight itself bent to his rhythm. Elena hated how much she relied on that steadiness, hated that his presence felt like an anchor when hers was breaking. But the mission didn't care about her feelings. It cared about survival. By the time the last echo faded, the ridge was silent again, silent in that cruel, heavy way that always followed violence. The valley seemed to exhale, dust settling, sun pressing harder against their backs. Martinez was breathing fast, his chest rising and falling like he'd just run a marathon. He tore the gum from his mouth, spat it onto the dirt, and wiped sweat from his brow. His hand still trembled as he reloaded. Harlow leaned back against a boulder, his face drawn tight. He looked older in that moment, lines etched deeper into his skin. His eyes darted toward Elena, searching for something, reassurance, direction, maybe even humanity. She gave him a nod she didn't feel. And then there was Dawson. Standing where he had ended the fight, rifle slung casually at his side, eyes scanning the ridge like nothing had changed. His chest rose slow, steady. No sign of adrenaline, no crack in the mask. Elena hated him for that calm, because inside she was breaking. They moved again, slower now. Every shadow, every rock carried threat. Elena's senses stretched thin, pulling at the edges of silence. Her thoughts fought her with every step. The face she had seen wouldn't leave. Her brother, his voice, his laughter, the way he had whispered to her on those nights when fear was all they had. "We'll get out, Lena, I promise." But he hadn't. She had. And the guilt had followed her into every mission, every shot, every night of silence. Now it had followed her here. Why now? Why him? She kept moving, jaw tight, eyes sharp. But in the back of her mind the question twisted. What if it wasn't a ghost? What if it was real? Night fell on the valley with brutal speed. The desert sun surrendered to darkness, and with it came cold that bit through uniforms and bone. They made camp in a narrow ravine, fire forbidden, silence demanded. Martinez sat with his back against stone, chewing on dry rations like they were ash. His voice cracked when he spoke. "First time seeing them up close. Thought I'd be braver." Harlow gave him a tired look. "Bravery's not what keeps you alive. Discipline does. Bravery just gets you killed faster." The kid looked down, embarrassed. "Yeah, guess so." Elena watched them from across the circle. Their faces, so human in the dark. Fear written plain. They weren't unbreakable soldiers. They were kids, fathers, men carrying ghosts of their own. She swallowed hard. "You did fine, Martinez." His eyes flicked up, surprised, almost grateful. She looked away before he could see the truth in hers. Dawson sat apart, as always, sharpening his knife with slow, deliberate strokes. The steel hissed against stone. Sparks glowed faintly before dying into night. His silence filled the ravine louder than words. Finally he spoke, not looking at her, not looking at anyone. "You hesitated today." The words landed like a strike. Elena froze. Heat rushed to her chest, defensive, raw. "I didn't." He lifted his eyes then, meeting hers across the shadows. "You did." Her jaw clenched. She wanted to argue, to bite back, to shut him down. But she couldn't. Because he was right. And she hated him for seeing it. Harlow shifted, sensing the tension. "Doesn't matter now, we're still here." But Elena knew it did matter. Hesitation mattered. In this place it could kill. She rolled to her side, lay back against the stone, eyes staring at the slice of stars above the ravine. The night pressed heavy, memories pressing heavier. She tried to sleep, but the face came again. Her brother, smiling, fatting, waiting. Hours later, she woke to movement. Not loud, not clumsy, controlled. She opened her eyes. Dawson. He was standing at the edge of the ravine, staring into the dark valley, knife sheathed, rifle resting across his chest. He hadn't seen her stir. For a moment, she just watched him, the way he stood so still, like he belonged to the silence itself, the way the night didn't touch him, didn't bend him. And she wondered, who was he really? What ghosts followed him? What silence did he carry? Because no one carried silence that heavy without a reason. And Elena knew, with a certainty that chilled her more than the cold desert air, that whatever his reason was, she would find out. The only question was whether she'd survive the answer. Why did the silence feel heavier in the morning than it had during the night? The valley was still. No birds, no wind, just stone and sky stretching endless and cold. Elena pulled her gear tighter, boots crunching gravel as the team broke camp. Her body moved with the rhythm of training, but her mind lagged behind, still caught in the face she had seen, the hesitation Dawson had carved into words. She kept her eyes forward. If she let them wander, they would betray her. The mission demanded focus. The team fell into formation, footsteps echoing lightly against the canyon walls. Martinez tried to hum under his breath, nerves spilling out in quiet rhythm, but Harlow cut him off with a sharp glare. The sound died. Dawson walked point, always silent. His shadow stretched long in the morning light, a figure cut from stone itself. Elena followed, every step heavier than the last. The compound lay ahead, just beyond the ridge, just beyond the dust. The map in her mind burned like an afterimage, but so did something else, something she had buried. Her brother's voice. "You'll come back for me, right?" She shook the memory off, but it clung like a stain. 2 hours into the march, the silence broke. A sound, low, mechanical, carried by the wind. Engines. The team froze, pressed against the rocks, rifles rising in unison. Elena's pulse quickened as the growl grew louder, bouncing off canyon walls. Then they appeared, 2 trucks, rolling slow across the valley floor below. Dust plumed behind them, tires grinding against dirt. Enemy convoy. Through her scope, Elena counted 6 men, 4 armed in the back, 2 in the cab, relaxed, unaware. An easy shot. Her trigger finger twitched. Then she hesitated. Not because of doubt, not this time. Because she saw the face again, not on the ridge, not in the dust, but in the passenger seat of the first truck. She gasped, low and sharp. Her hands nearly slipped from the rifle. It was him. Her brother. Older now, beard thick, eyes hardened, but him. She blinked, desperate for the mirage to vanish. It didn't. Elena. Dawson's whisper again, steady, close enough to feel. Take the shot. Her throat locked. She couldn't breathe, couldn't move, couldn't reconcile the impossible truth staring at her through the scope. Her brother alive, riding with the men they had come here to destroy. Her finger hovered, shaking. She lowered the rifle. "No," she whispered. Martinez hissed, "What are you doing? We have them." Dawson's hand landed on her shoulder, firm, grounding, but his voice carried something colder than command. "You hesitated again." She turned, eyes burning into his. "That's not." But she couldn't finish. Because the trucks were gone. Dust fatting into horizon. And the silence that followed was worse than gunfire. They moved again, but not the same. The air between them shifted, heavier, charged with something unspoken. Martinez muttered curses under his breath. Harlow kept glancing at Elena, eyes narrowed, suspicion creeping in. And Dawson walked closer now, not watching the horizon, watching her. Elena's chest tightened. She needed to speak to explain, but the words wouldn't come. How could she? How could she tell them she had just seen her brother alive, sitting in the enemy's truck? She couldn't. Not yet. Not until she knew what it meant. By dusk, they reached high ground overlooking the compound. The place was a scar on the valley, walls of rusted steel, towers manned by restless shadows. Antennas stabbed the sky. Vehicles lined the perimeter. Two fortified for 4 soldiers. Martinez muttered, "Looks like hell's backyard." Harlow grunted, "Worse, looks like someone knew we were coming." The words sank like lead. Elena scanned the perimeter, her stomach twisting. Harlow was right, this wasn't chance. Their path had been compromised from the start, the ambush, the convoy, all of it. Which meant someone had fed the enemy their steps. But who? She stole a glance at Dawson. His face gave nothing. Her mind whispered traitor. Her heart whispered liar. And somewhere between the two lived a possibility she didn't want to face. Her brother's survival, tied to this place, this mission, this silence. They watched the compound until night swallowed the valley. The plan: wait for the dead of night, breach from the east wall, disable comms, extract intel, exfil before dawn. It sounded clean. On paper it was perfect. But reality was never paper. As the team lay in the dirt, waiting for the moment to move, Martinez whispered into the dark, "My sister just had a kid, haven't even met her yet." Elena turned her head. The kid's voice shook, but there was pride under it, longing. He swallowed. "Feels stupid thinking about that here." Harlow's voice softened, almost fatherly. "It's not stupid, it's what keeps you human." The silence that followed was different, softer, gentler, even as the compound lights glared like teeth in the distance. Elena's chest ached. She thought of her brother again, the boy clinging to her arm, the promise unkept. And she wondered what had kept him human all these years. When the time came, they moved like shadows. Crawling low, cutting across dirt, sliding into darkness. The east wall loomed above them, steel rust flacking under their gloves. Harlow set the charges. Martinez covered. Elena's scope scanned the towers. Dawson stayed close, too close. The wall blew in silence, a muffled pop swallowed by the night. They slipped inside, breath held, rifles tight. The compound smelled of oil, sweat, rust. Voices carried from barracks. Footsteps echoed from patrols. They moved quick, weaving through shadow, hearts pounding in rhythm. And then Elena froze. Voices clear. Not enemy, not foreign. English. She slid closer, pressing against the wall. And she heard it. The voice she knew better than her own. Her brother. Alive. Speaking with their target. And suddenly, the mission wasn't about survival. It was about truth. Why did her legs feel like stone when every instinct screamed to move? The compound's walls pressed in around her. The voices drifted closer, carried by the stale night air. She crouched in shadow, rifle steady in her hands, though her grip trembled. And there it was again. The voice. Not imagined, not a phantom. Her brother. Alive. Speaking with the enemy inside these walls. Her breath caught. The sound alone ripped her open, tearing down years of stone she had built around the wound. His cadence, the way he clipped certain words, the pause he always made before answering, it was him. Without doubt, without question. Elena's heart slammed against her ribs. She wanted to burst from cover, wanted to run to him, shake him, demand the truth. But discipline strangled her impulse. She couldn't move. Not yet. Because the others were listening too. Martinez shifted beside her, whisper sharp, "You hear that?" Harlow's brow furrowed, confusion etched deep. English, American, what the hell? Dawson's eyes cut to Elena. No words, just that steady, dissecting stare. And she knew. He had seen the crack in her armor. He had known something was buried in her before she ever admitted it to herself. Her throat locked. "Yes," she whispered, barely audible, "I hear it." But she didn't tell them what it meant. Not yet. They slid deeper into the compound, shadows among shadows. Every corner, every light, every sound stretched nerves thinner. The building where the voices echoed glowed faintly, windows throwing pale rectangles onto the dirt. Elena's stomach twisted as the silhouette inside moved. Tall, broad-shouldered, familiar. Martinez whispered, "That's." "Quiet," Dawson cut in, voice low, final. They pressed against the wall, close enough to hear fragments of the conversation through the thin steel. Elena strained, every word stabbing. "Supply routes secured. Promises kept. Family has no place in this war." Her blood ran cold. She heard her brother laugh then, short, bitter. The kind of laugh he'd never had as a boy, a sound shaped by years she hadn't lived with him. And in that moment, the truth began to settle like poison in her chest. He wasn't a prisoner here. He belonged. Harlow finally whispered what no one wanted to say. "He's working with them." Elena closed her eyes. The words felt like a blade twisting. Martinez's voice rose, barely controlled. "No way. He's one of ours. He has to be." "He's not," Dawson said flatly. The words landed like a hammer, unforgiving, certain. Elena's nails dug into her palms. Her heart screamed to argue, to deny, but her eyes betrayed her. She had seen his stance, his comfort, his authority among them. Her brother hadn't been taken. He had chosen. And nothing in her training had prepared her for that. They pulled back into the shadows, retreating far enough that the voices faded. The team crouched in a dead corner of the compound, the air between them tense, raw. Martinez shook his head over and over. "There's got to be another explanation. Maybe he's undercover. Maybe he's—" "He's not," Dawson repeated, cutting him down again. Martinez's face twisted with anger. "You don't know that." Dawson's stare didn't waver. "I do." Elena's chest tightened. Every word was a storm inside her. She wanted Martinez's hope. She wanted Dawson's certainty to be wrong. But deep down, she knew which side the truth leaned on. And it broke her. Harlow leaned against the wall, sighing heavy. "Orders said nothing about this. We're supposed to extract intel, not deal with." His eyes flicked to Elena, hesitation hanging thick. "Not deal with family." Her stomach dropped. So they knew. Maybe not everything, but enough. Her brother's voice had given her away. She turned away, blinking fast, jaw clenched tight. She couldn't let them see the tears building at the edges. Not here, not now. The night dragged, every second stretching thin. They found cover in an abandoned storehouse, shadows swallowing them whole. No fire, no whispers, just breathing. Elena sat alone near the broken wall, staring through a gap at the compound lights beyond. And for the first time since she had enlisted, she felt like a soldier who didn't know her war. Her brother was alive. That should have been salvation, hope, but instead it was a blade carving her apart. She thought of her mother, the way she used to braid Elena's hair tight, telling her she had to be strong. She thought of her brother's promise, the way he held her hand that last night before he disappeared. "You'll come back for me, right?" And now she was here, and he wasn't waiting for rescue. He was standing on the other side. The thought made her chest ache so hard, she pressed her fist against it. Why? Why had he chosen them? Why had he left her to carry the silence alone? Her eyes burned, but she blinked the tears away, forcing them back into the pit where all the others lived. Because soldiers didn't cry in the field, even when the war turned against their own blood. Dawson approached, silent until he was only a step away. She stiffened, refusing to look at him. "You knew," he said quietly. The words weren't a question. Her jaw clenched. "No." He crouched beside her, voice steady, cutting through the night. You saw him on the ridge. You saw him in the convoy. You've been seeing him since we left base. She turned, anger flaring hot. You don't know what I've seen. His gaze didn't flinch. I know hesitation. I know when someone's fighting ghosts instead of enemies. Her chest tightened. He's my brother. I figured, Dawson said simply. The calm in his tone infuriated her. She wanted to scream, wanted to demand why he wasn't shocked, why he wasn't human enough to understand the fracture inside her. But instead, she swallowed it down. Because maybe he did understand. Maybe too well. The hours bled into dawn. The compound stirred, men moving like ants, engines rumbling. The team stayed hidden, waiting, nerves frayed to threads. Finally, Harlow broke the silence. We can't just sit here. Command expects intel. That means we move tonight, in or out. Martinez's voice cracked. And what about him? We can't leave him. Dawson cut in sharp. He's not the mission. The word stabbed Elena's chest. Her brother, not the mission. Harlow looked at her then, heavy with unspoken weight. Your team lead, Vargas, call it. The silence that followed was suffocating. Elena's throat tightened. Every part of her wanted to scream that the mission didn't matter, that blood mattered more than orders, that she couldn't walk away from him again. But the mission wasn't about her. It was about them. Martinez, Harlow, even Dawson, their lives balanced on her choice. And choice was heavier than any rifle. Her voice came out low, breaking. We move tonight. The words shattered something inside her. But she couldn't take them back. The night came heavy, pressing down with the weight of unspoken choices. The compound pulsed with life, lights flickering in towers, men moving in rotations, voices echoing off walls. Engines hummed in the distance, vehicles being prepped for routes that would carve deeper into the region. And in the still shadows beyond those walls, Elena Vargas crouched with her team, every nerve wired tight. Her decision had been made. But it felt like a betrayal. 2 guards at the north gate, Harlow whispered, peering through the scope. One smoking, one half asleep, sloppy. Patrol's light, Martinez added. His hands shook slightly as he adjusted his rifle, though his voice tried to steady. We go quiet, we get in. Dawson crouched beside them, every move deliberate, measured. He didn't need to say much. His silence was more commanding than most men's orders. But Elena felt his eyes on her, weighing her, waiting to see if she would crack. She inhaled slowly, forcing air past the tight knot in her throat. We go in through the north. Martinez, your point. Harlow, you cover. Dawson. Her voice faltered, but only for a second. With me. It was set. The team moved. The dirt pressed soft under their boots as they crawled, shadows sliding with shadows. The moon hid behind ragged clouds, their only mercy. Elena's heart hammered harder with each step closer. The compound loomed, tall and merciless, and yet it wasn't the enemy walls that made her chest ache. It was the thought of him. Inside. Breathing the same air, speaking a language she knew too well. The guards at the gate slouched, one flicking ash, the other yawning. Martinez crept forward, knife glinting faint in the dark, a blur of movement, one down, then another, silent, swift. The gate was theirs. Elena swallowed hard, signaling forward. They slipped inside. The compound smelled of oil, sweat, and damp earth. Vehicles sat lined along the edges, weapons stacked in careless order. Men moved in scattered groups, unaware of the predators among them. Every step was a razor's edge. Elena's eyes scanned constantly, rifle raised, finger brushing the trigger. But beneath the discipline, her thoughts churned. Would she see him first? Would he recognize her? Would he call her name, or would he raise a weapon? The thought sickened her. Martinez whispered, Intel Room Center building. Elena nodded, her voice a ghost. Move. They crept through alleys between warehouses, every shadow their shield. Twice they froze as men passed within feet, the air thick with danger. Her body obeyed training, her heart did not. Finally, they reached the center building. Two guards stood outside, rifles slung lazy. Harlow's suppressed shot cracked softly. One dropped. Martinez surged forward, knife flashing once more. The second crumpled. Dawson checked the perimeter. A nod, clear. Elena's pulse pounded. The door stood before them, steel and silent, but beyond it, answers. She forced her hand to the handle. On me. The door creaked open, and they slipped inside. The room smelled of ink, paper, and sweat. Maps covered the walls, supply routes marked in thick red lines. Documents littered the table, radios crackled faintly. And at the far end of the room, he stood. Her brother. Elena froze. Time shattered. He hadn't changed, and yet he had. His shoulders broader, his face harder, jaw set like stone. His uniform wasn't theirs anymore. His eyes, once bright, now shadowed with something darker. And when those eyes lifted, they found her. Recognition struck like lightning. His lips parted. Elena. Her chest caved. The sound of her name in his voice was a weapon sharper than any blade. The team raised their rifles instantly, tension crackling. He didn't move, didn't reach for a weapon. He just stared at her, shock written across the lines of his hardened face. Elena, his voice broke. It's really you. Her throat locked. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The team waited, fingers on triggers, eyes cutting between them. But for Elena, the world had narrowed to just him. Her brother. Alive. And standing on the wrong side of the war. Dawson's voice cut the silence, sharp as a blade. Say the word, Vargas. She couldn't. Her brother stepped forward, hands raised slowly. Not in surrender, almost in plea. You shouldn't be here, he said. His tone carried warning, not anger. This place, it's not what you think. Martinez hissed, rage lacing his voice. He's one of them, don't listen. Quiet, Dawson snapped. Elena's breath came shallow. Her rifle shook in her hands. Tell me it isn't true, she whispered, voice cracking. His eyes softened just for her. It's not that simple. Then make it simple, she shot back, tears burning. You're alive. I thought you were gone, and now you're standing here with them. Why? The question broke her. Why? Her brother's face twisted with conflict, pain written deep. Because I had no choice. Because the people you fight for, they left us. They left me. And these men, he gestured to the walls, the maps, the world he stood in. They gave me purpose. The words shattered her. Dawson's jaw tightened. Vargas' time. The team couldn't wait. The mission couldn't wait. But her heart screamed louder than orders. She lowered her rifle a fraction, torn in two. Come with me, she whispered, desperate. We can leave now together. Her brother's eyes darkened. His head shook slowly. You don't understand, I can't. Martinez growled. He's a traitor, he made his choice. Elena spun on him, fury blazing. Shut up. The silence that followed was deafening. Her brother took another step closer, voice low. Elena, you have to go, before it's too late. Her chest ached, not without you. Then, the alarm shattered the night. A guard outside had found the bodies. Shouts erupted, boots pounding against dirt. The compound came alive with chaos. Dawson snapped into motion. We're blown, move now. Martinez grabbed the documents off the table, shoving them into his pack. Harlow swung his rifle to the door, covering the entry as shouts grew louder. Elena stood frozen, torn between mission and blood. Her brother grabbed her arm suddenly, eyes burning. Listen to me. If you stay, you die. Go. She shook her head, tears streaming. I can't leave you. You already did once, he said, voice breaking. Don't make it twice. The words gutted her. Gunfire erupted outside, bullets tearing through the walls. Dawson shoved her hard toward the exit. Vargas now. Her brother's hand slipped from hers as the team surged, and she was dragged into the night, her heart left behind. They ran. The compound roared with fury, alarms blaring, bullets cracking the air. The team sprinted through alleys, shadows shattered by muzzle flashes. Harlow fired controlled bursts, dropping pursuers. Martinez cursed under his breath, clutching the stolen intel. Dawson moved like a machine, precise, unyielding, forcing them forward. And Elena, she stumbled through the chaos, her chest hollow. Her brother's voice still echoed in her ears. "You already left me once." The words burned like fire in her veins. They reached the gate, but it was no longer theirs. Guards swarmed, rifles raised, shouting. Dawson barked, "Break left." They veered, cutting through another alley. A grenade clattered near. Harlow kicked it back, explosion rocking the ground behind them. Dust choked the air, shouts closing in. Martinez yelled, "We're boxed." And then her brother appeared. On the wall above them, rifle slung across his back. His eyes locked on hers, fierce, desperate. He shouted something in their language, waving his men back. For a heartbeat, they hesitated. Just long enough. "Move," Dawson ordered. The team burst through the gap he'd created, sprinting into the dark beyond the compound. Bullets chased them, but none found their mark. And when Elena glanced back, her brother was still there, watching her go. His face a storm of war and blood and memory. They didn't stop running until the compound lights were a distant glow, swallowed by the night. The team collapsed behind a ridge, chests heaving, sweat and dust caking their skin. The documents lay heavy in Martinez's hands, the mission successful. But Elena's heart, ruined. She sat apart from them, staring into the dark, tears silent on her cheeks. Her brother was alive. Her brother had saved them. But he hadn't chosen her. Not then. Not yet. Why didn't she pull the trigger? That was the question no one said aloud, as the team trudged back toward their extraction point. The night clung to them, heavy with dust and gunpowder. Their boots crushed dry grass, their lungs burned, and their silence screamed louder than gunfire. Elena walked at the rear, her rifle loose in her hands, the world blurring around her. Every step felt like moving through water. Her legs carried her body, but her mind stayed inside the compound. With him. Her brother's face replayed endlessly, lit by the cold glow of maps and radios. His voice echoed in her ears, raw and broken. "You already left me once, don't make it twice." The weight of those words pressed like stone on her chest. Dawson finally broke the silence. His voice was low, even, but sharp enough to cut steel. "You hesitated." Elena's throat locked. She kept her eyes forward, but the sting in his tone burned. Martinez spat, kicking at the dirt. Hesitated, she froze, we all saw it. "Shut it," Harlow muttered. His voice carried weariness, not anger. He knew what Martinez didn't. There was something deeper here, though he didn't yet know what. Martinez turned, his face twisted in disbelief. "Shut it. She nearly got us killed. If Dawson hadn't pushed, if that alarm." "Enough," Dawson snapped. His eyes stayed on Elena, unreadable. "We'll deal with this later." But the damage was already done. Elena's chest tightened. She wanted to scream, to defend herself, to explain. But what could she say? That the enemy commander was her brother. That the man they all would have killed was the only piece of family she had left. The words clawed at her throat, but they never came out. So she stayed silent. Just like him. By the time they reached the extraction point, dawn was bleeding into the horizon. The sky glowed faint orange, clouds dragging slow across it. The helicopter waited, blades slicing the cool air. Its roar drowned out thought, yet Elena's heart beat louder still. They climbed aboard, exhausted bodies collapsing into steel benches. Martinez ripped off his helmet, tossing it to the floor. Harlow leaned back, eyes closed, his breath heavy. Dawson sat still, arms folded, gaze locked on nothing. Yet she felt his silence aimed directly at her. Elena strapped in, her hands trembling as she pulled the harness tight. She pressed her forehead against the vibrating wall, eyes closed. The helicopter lifted, carrying them away from the valley, away from the compound, away from him. But she knew she hadn't truly left him. Not anymore. Back at base, the air tasted of dust and diesel. Soldiers moved in lines, trucks rumbled, radios crackled. The war machine never slept. Command wasted no time. The documents Martinez had grabbed were whisked away, spread across tables, circled by officers and analysts. Voices rose and fell, pointing at maps, tracing supply lines, discussing next moves. The mission was marked as a success. But for Elena, it was a failure written deep into her bones. Because the real target wasn't ink on a page. It was blood. Her blood. Later in the briefing room, Dawson stood at her side as the colonel read the initial report. His voice carried no praise, no warmth. "You brought back what we needed, but your team reports hesitation. Is that true, Captain Vargas?" Elena's stomach knotted. She felt Dawson's presence beside her, solid, unmoving. Martinez sat further down, his eyes drilling into her with unspoken judgment. Harlow avoided her gaze, his silence protective. She forced her voice steady. "We encountered unexpected resistance. I assessed before engaging." The colonel's eyes narrowed. He didn't push, but he didn't believe her either. "We can't afford hesitation, not on missions like this. Do you understand?" "Yes, sir." Her answer was clipped, automatic, but inside shame burned hot. The meeting ended. Officers shuffled out, papers gathered, doors shut. Only Dawson remained. He didn't speak at first. He just stood near the map, arms crossed, the weight of his silence suffocating. Elena clenched her fists. "Say it." He looked at her, his expression carved from stone. "I don't need to." "Yes, you do," she snapped. Her voice cracked with the desperation she'd been burying. "You've been staring at me since we left that place. You want to know why. You want to know what stopped me." Dawson stepped closer, his voice low but sharp. "I don't want to know, I need to know. Because next time hesitation gets people killed. And I don't care what your reasons are, if they're heavier than your orders, then you're in the wrong place." His words cut, but the truth inside them cut deeper. Elena's breath trembled. She wanted to scream the truth into his face, to unload the storm ripping her apart, but fear held her tongue. Fear of what command would do if they knew. Fear of what Dawson would think. Fear of what Martinez would spread. And fear of facing the truth aloud. That her brother was alive, and she couldn't bring herself to kill him. So she said nothing. Dawson studied her for a long moment. Then he shook his head, disappointment flickering in his eyes, and walked out. The door shut behind him. And Elena collapsed into the empty room, her hands trembling, tears finally breaking free. Night stretched longer after that. Sleep evaded her. Dreams tangled with memories, her brother laughing in the summer heat, her brother running beside her through dusty streets, her brother disappearing into the smoke of that night long ago. Now his face blurred with the man in the compound, the man with shadowed eyes, the man who had told her she already left him once. Her heart twisted every time she replayed it. She had prayed he was dead once. That death was easier than betrayal. But now he was alive, and alive was worse. Alive meant choice. Alive meant the line between family and enemy wasn't just blurred, it was bleeding. Martinez avoided her at first, then he didn't. One night in the mess hall, his voice cut through the noise, sharp and bitter. "You froze." Elena looked up from her untouched tray. He stood across the table, jaw tight, eyes blazing. "You think I didn't see it? he pressed. You stared at him like you knew him, like you couldn't pull the trigger. Her stomach turned cold. Watch your mouth. Martinez leaned in, voice low but venomous. You're hiding something, and when I find out what it is, Command will know too. The words struck like a threat and a promise. He stormed off, leaving her alone with the weight of her secret. Harlow found her later, sitting outside under the night sky. The desert stretched endless, stars burning sharp above. You want to tell me what happened? He asked gently. Elena shook her head, her eyes on the stars. You wouldn't understand. Harlow sat beside her, his beard catching silver light. Try me. Her throat tightened. The confession pressed, desperate to break free, but fear bound it still. So instead, she whispered, sometimes I don't know what side I'm on anymore. Harlow studied her quietly, then nodded. That makes you human. The words gave her no comfort. Days bled into weeks. Command pushed forward with new plans, routes based on the documents they'd stolen. The war machine churned on, uncaring of broken hearts or torn loyalties. But Elena couldn't escape the truth. Her brother was alive. Her brother had saved her. And her brother had chosen the other side. The question tore at her, day after day, night after night. What side did that put her on? And one night, weeks later, as she sat alone in the barracks, staring at the photo she kept hidden, her and her brother as children, arms slung around each other, grins wide and innocent, she heard a voice behind her. Low, steady, familiar. You're not the only one carrying ghosts. She turned. Dawson stood in the doorway, shadows clinging to him, eyes unreadable. But for the first time, his silence felt less like judgment and more like understanding. What would she do if the next bullet had his name on it? The question haunted her with every briefing, every patrol, every mission rehearsal. It sat with her at the mess hall table, followed her to the shooting range, whispered to her as she lay awake in the dark. War was supposed to be clear, friend or foe, mission or failure, life or death. But now nothing was clear, because her brother lived inside the fog. Weeks had passed since the raid, but the memory lingered like smoke. Dawson's steady gaze, Martinez's suspicion, Harlow's quiet concern, it all pressed down, a constant weight she couldn't shake. And then Command summoned her. The colonel's office was cold, steel blinds casting sharp lines across the desk. Papers spread like a battlefield map, red circles marking enemy hubs. You've seen these locations, the colonel said. His tone was clipped, clinical. Intel from your last mission confirms they're operational. We have a window. You and your team will move to dismantle the network. Elena's stomach twisted. She scanned the map, routes, supply chains, strongholds. Her eyes locked on one circle larger than the rest. The compound. His compound. She masked the tremor in her breath. When? 72 hours. Her pulse thundered. The colonel leaned forward. Vargas, I need you sharp. The hesitation your team reported, his voice sharpened. That cannot happen again, understood? Yes, sir, she said. The lie slipped too easily. Back in the barracks, Martinez cornered her. His voice was low but sharp as a blade. We're going back, aren't we? Elena stiffened. His eyes searched hers, too knowing, too hungry for answers. You knew him, Martinez said, his tone half accusation, half revelation. That man in the compound, you looked at him like family. Her blood ran cold. She forced steel into her voice. Drop it. Martinez leaned closer, his breath hot with anger. If I'm right and you're hiding something, then you're a liability, and I won't let a liability get me killed. Before she could speak, Dawson's voice cut in. Enough. Martinez stiffened. Dawson stood in the doorway, silent as stone, but his presence filled the room. Martinez muttered under his breath, then stormed off. Dawson's eyes stayed on Elena, steady, unreadable. For a long moment he said nothing. Then quietly he asked, "Was he your brother?" The words pierced her. Her chest tightened, throat dry. "What makes you think?" "Because I've seen that look before," Dawson interrupted, his voice low, "on men who aimed rifles at their own blood." The silence that followed was unbearable. Her secret cracked open under his gaze. She looked away, voice breaking. "He wasn't supposed to be there. He was gone, dead. That's what I believed. And now—" Her eyes burned. "Now he's the enemy." Dawson didn't flinch, didn't judge, just nodded once, slow and heavy. "Then you need to decide if you can live with what comes next." The mission prep consumed them, maps studied, routes traced, weapons cleaned until the metal gleamed. But Elena's focus fractured. Every time she loaded a magazine, she pictured loading it against him. Every time she adjusted her scope, she saw his face inside the crosshairs. Her brother's her enemy. And the line between the two blurred more each day. Harlow caught her in the armory, her hands trembling over her rifle. He leaned against the wall, his voice soft. "You're somewhere else." She forced a breath. "I'm fine." He studied her quietly, then said, "Fine is the word soldiers use before they break." Her chest ached. She wanted to tell him, wanted to unburden the storm gnawing at her, but the words stuck. So instead, she whispered, "Do you ever feel like the war changes you into someone you don't recognize?" Harlow's eyes softened. "Every day." The answer settled heavy in her bones. Night before the mission. Sleep didn't come. She sat on her bunk, staring at the photo hidden in her pocket. Two kids, arms slung around each other, grins wide, dust in their hair. Innocence frozen in time. Her hands shook as she traced the edges. How had they gone from that to this? A knock at the door, Dawson's voice. "We leave at dawn." He paused, then added softer, "Don't let ghosts write your orders." His footsteps faded, and Elena sat in silence, gripping the photo, tears burning her eyes. Dawn broke cold, wind slicing across the valley. The team moved swift, silent, the weight of inevitability pressing with each step. The target loomed ahead, the compound, fortified now, guards doubled, towers bristling with rifles. They crouched low behind a ridge, the world humming with tension. Martinez whispered, "Looks like they're expecting us." Dawson's jaw tightened. "Then let's not disappoint them." Elena's pulse pounded. Her scope swept the walls, searching, scanning. And froze. There, on the tower, her brother. His silhouette cut sharp against the dawn, rifle slung across his chest, eyes scanning the horizon. Her breath hitched. He was waiting. For her. The plan unfolded. Dawson laid out signals. Martinez shifted nervously, checking his gear twice. Harlow whispered prayers under his breath. But Elena's focus blurred. Her world narrowed to that tower, that figure, that bloodline staring into the distance. Could he see her? Could he feel her presence the way she felt his? Her rifle trembled. Dawson's voice grounded her. "Vargas with me." She nodded, forcing her mask back on, but inside her heart fractured. They slipped closer, weaving through shadows, silenced their ally. Guards patrolled, boots crunching gravel, radios crackling. Every corner was danger, every breath was risk. But Elena's danger wasn't just outside, it was inside. Inside the compound. Inside her chest. Her brother. Halfway through the approach, the first shot cracked. A guard dropped from the tower, Harlow's clean kill. The alarm began to rise, shouts echoing. The compound erupted. Gunfire split the dawn, sharp and violent. Bullets tore the air, dirt spraying around them. The team moved as one, practiced, precise, firing, covering, advancing. Elena's rifle roared, her training pulling her body forward even as her heart dragged back. Through the chaos, her eyes locked again on the tower. Her brother was gone. They breached the outer wall, grenades shaking the ground, smoke filling the air. Martinez pushed forward, shouting over the noise. Harlow covered the flank, steady despite the storm. Dawson led with unflinching precision, his silence louder than commands. And Elena. She moved like a ghost. Her shots landed, her body obeyed, but her soul lingered somewhere else. Somewhere above, behind, within. Where her brother waited. Inside the compound, chaos reigned. Men shouted, rifles cracked, dust choked the air. Dawson signaled left, Martinez charged right, Harlow dropped another target. Elena's path diverged. Something pulled her, through smoke, through noise, through blood. Up. Toward the tower. Toward him. Her legs moved before thought. Her rifle hugged close, her breath sharp. And then, through the smoke, a figure emerged. Her brother. Eyes locked. The world froze. Bullets screamed around them. Men fell, dust filled the air. But for a moment, there was only silence. Her and him. The silence between them was heavier than the battle raging around. Smoke curled between broken walls. Gunfire cracked in uneven bursts, echoing off stone. Shouts rose, then were drowned by explosions. And still, Elena saw only him. Her brother. His eyes were the same, dark, steady, unflinching. The years had carved lines into his face, hardened his jaw, but nothing could erase the boy she remembered. The boy who once shielded her from bullies, who patched her scraped knees, who swore he'd never leave her behind. And yet here they were, on opposite sides of a war neither of them chose. Put it down, Elena. His voice cut through the chaos, steady, commanding. Her heart twisted at the sound of her name. He still spoke it the same way, like she was fragile, like she was his to protect. She raised her rifle anyway. You're fighting for the wrong side. His lips pressed thin. So are you. The words landed like a bullet. Because maybe he believed it. Maybe he believed she had betrayed something bigger, something purer than orders and flags. Why, she demanded, her voice breaking. Why join them? Why stand against everything we swore we'd defend? His jaw clenched. He glanced past her where her team advanced through smoke and fire. Because I saw the truth. The war you fight isn't justice, it's control. You kill to protect their power, not the people. Her grip faltered. Was he wrong? Martinez's voice suddenly split the air. Vargas, what the hell are you doing? He and Harlow had broken through the smoke, rifles raised, eyes darting between her and her brother. Dawson followed, steady, calm, but his gaze sharpened when it landed on the man in front of Elena. Recognition, understanding, and then silence. Her brother shifted his rifle, not at her, at them. Martinez cursed, finger tightening on the trigger. He's a hostile, drop him. Wait, Elena's voice cracked. She stepped between them, rifle half lowered. Don't. Martinez's face twisted with rage. You've lost your damn mind. Harlow's voice trembled, desperate. Elena, move. Dawson said nothing, just watched, always watching, always weighing. Her brother's voice cut the tension. These men are not your family. They'll turn on you the second you hesitate, but me, his eyes burned into hers. I never will. Her throat ached, tears burned. The world shrank to a choice she couldn't bear. Her brother. Her team. Blood or oath. Past or present. Gunfire erupted nearby. The compound shook. Dust rained from the ceiling. Dawson finally spoke, calm but sharp. Vargas, decide. The weight of the war crashed down. Her hands shook, her breath fractured. She remembered her brother's hand gripping hers as they ran barefoot through fields, laughing until their lungs burned. She remembered the oath she swore to defend her country, her team, the innocent lives depending on her. Both truths lived in her, and both demanded blood. Her brother took a step closer, lowering his weapon slightly. His voice softened, almost pleading. "Come with me, Elena. Leave this behind. We can walk away together. No more chains, no more lies." The words nearly broke her. She wanted it. God, she wanted it. But then she saw Harlow, bloodied, exhausted, still standing by her side. Martinez, angry, distrustful, but alive because she had his back before. Dawson, silent, unwavering, trusting her even now. Her family wasn't just blood anymore. It was the people who bled beside her. Her breath steadied, her hands stopped trembling. She raised her rifle and aimed it at her brother. His eyes widened, not in fear but in heartbreak. "Elena." Her voice cracked. "I can't." For a moment, time held its breath. Then gunfire exploded. Her brother moved first, snapping his rifle up toward Dawson. Instinct screamed through her veins. She fired. The shot cracked the air, sharp, final. Her brother staggered, eyes locking with hers one last time. And then he fell. Silence swallowed the battlefield. Her rifle lowered, hands numb. Smoke stung her eyes, but it wasn't smoke that blurred her vision. Her knees buckled. The photo in her pocket felt like it burned against her chest. Harlow touched her shoulder, voice gentle. "Elena." She couldn't look at him, couldn't look at any of them. Martinez muttered, almost in awe, "She shot him." Dawson's voice silenced them all. She did what had to be done. But the words offered no comfort. Because what had to be done was also what she could never undo. The compound collapsed under fire. Explosives planted, walls crumbling. The team exfiltrated fast, leaving flames in their wake. Elena walked like a ghost. Every step away from the compound felt like betrayal. Every breath felt stolen. Her brother's last look haunted her, the mix of love, sorrow, and understanding. Not anger, not hate. Understanding. As if he'd known all along this was how it would end. Back at base, command celebrated. Another network dismantled. Another victory secured. But Elena didn't feel victory. She felt hollow. Her hands were clean of blood, scrubbed raw, but she still saw the stain. Dawson approached her in the empty barracks. His silence pressed heavy, then finally he spoke. "You chose." Her voice was raw. "I killed my brother." Dawson's gaze was steady. "You saved your team." Her chest ached. At what cost? For once, even Dawson had no answer. Nights stretched long. Sleep offered no rest, only visions of him, his voice, his face, his fall. She replayed the moment endlessly, searching for another way, a path she missed. But the truth was unyielding. There was no other way. And that was the cruelest cut of all. Weeks later, she found herself standing at the edge of camp, the desert stretching endless before her. Harlow joined her quietly, offering no words, just presence. After a long silence, she whispered, "How do you live with it?" He frowned. "With what?" "The ghosts." Harlow's eyes softened. "You don't, you just learn to carry them." His answer lingered as the wind swept the sand. Elena reached into her pocket. The photo trembled in her hand, two children smiling, arms wrapped tight. She pressed it to her chest, tears streaking silently. Her brother was gone. But the memory remained. And maybe, just maybe, that was how she would carry him. Not as the enemy she killed, but as the brother she loved. The war raged on, missions continued, orders came. But Elena was no longer the same. Her silence grew heavier, her eyes harder. Her team noticed but never asked. Dawson understood. Martinez kept his distance. Harlow stayed close. And Elena, she marched forward. One step at a time. Carrying ghosts. Because in war, victories weren't clean. They were carved in sacrifice. Measured in blood. And remembered in silence.